Ever since we launched this podcast, the focus is moms. However, Michael Gervais has been on the top of the list for guests. So
Very
You have been talking about
I
it
have.
since day one.
I
I'm
have.
like, who?
So,
Who is this
Mike,
guy?
Very
officially
sweet.
welcome to your mom.
Thank you.
It is great to have you
Ditto.
here. Many people know your work, but for those who don't know, high-performance psychologist, co-founder of Compete to Create, Finding Mastery is one of the best podcast listens out there. And you work on, you do a lot of different things, but high-performance mindset training. Is that?
Yeah, that's it. The background in the science is in classically trained as a psychologist with a specialization in sport and performance. And if there was a subspecialty, it would be in consequential or stressful environments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
Lisa
so you're
finds
my
so.
man.
Yeah, that's what I was
need
gonna
you.
say. I feel like
I
we just need to
touch
start
me
right
down
out
a
of the
couple
gate.
hours
Yeah.
here.
Sometimes it's the arena, sometimes it's the living room.
Yeah.
I know.
Help me.
Yeah.
Help me.
And that was when Lisa and I were recording very early on when we started this thing, and she was talking about. I said, "Tell me what game day is like for you," and she turned like ashen.
Oh yeah,
And-
that's a good question. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and it is stressful. And I think as a parent, there's not a lot you can do when your child is. Well, maybe there is.
There is.
So
There's
that's, I
actually
guess,
quite
my
a bit,
question.
yeah.
Good, tell me.
Is that where? Okay, good.
I
Let's
would
start
love it,
there.
yes.
Let's start there.
Well, why don't you start with what it's like for you first?
Yeah.
Oh, it's out of my control. So you have zero control on what's happening, but you have so much care and concern of the outcome, the health and safety of my son, and all all of his friends as well too. But oh my gosh, and then all these things go through your head, and I just get so stressed and so nervous. And help me.
You're
And I don't
describing
like to drink that much. I get
that
migraines.
much.
I'm not a big drinker.
that much.
That
yeah,
much, and I
right, yeah.
don't do drugs, so that's not going to help. So don't try to medicate me.
That would have been
that's
an
not
amazing
where we
answer.
go.
Idiots.
Yeah, right.
All right.
That
Yeah.
is
You
not
say,
where we
well,
go.
here, take this pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a couple hours.
Tequila goes a long way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
no. Okay,
All right,
so
so-
what you're describing is the ideal recipe for anxiety, right? It's focusing on the things that are outside of your control
Right.
and hoping that they're going to work out okay. But it's not hope, it's actually anxiousness because there's nothing you can do about that potential future. So then how do you kind of take control back is that it's going to sound really simple, is that you
Great.
focus on what's in your control. And it sounds so simple to
No.
do, but then we got to drill down underneath of it and be very clear, like what are the things that are 100% under your control? Okay, so the technical term is called arousal regulation, right?
Wow.
So
Wow,
I know,
I like
very
that.
technical,
I'm gonna
but
write
it's having the ability to be calm in any environment.
Right.
So where does that come from? Breathing and what you say to yourself. It's those two things.
Right.
And so, it sounds so simple, but that's
Yeah.
really what your son and great athletes across the planet, musicians and artists, that's what they work on, is mastering their skills from the inside out.
Right.
And here's the ultimate freedom. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You have complete control over your experience in life. That's the ultimate.
That's true.
That's what mastery of self really is about. Yeah. And it's
That's
not an
true.
easy path, but
No,
it is.
It's hard. So you have to not care what anybody else thinks.
Oh, well, now you're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
something really
Yeah.
fun, right?
Yes. Which
yeah.
is we were just talking about this.
Can I say?
Yes.
Can I-
Of
No.
course, you
FOPO
got
is
it,
what.
yeah.
right?
It's one of my
FOPO.
favorite
Yes.
terms.
Is
and I
it?
think
You love that?
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure you quite. Well, at least
Yeah.
the first time I heard it was from you.
Yeah.
So FOPO is.
So fear of people's opinions. And really fun. In November, I've got a book with HBR, Harvard Business Review, on this phenomenon, which is this underlying current that I think is available to most people, which is this excessive worry about what are they going to think about me or what are they thinking about me, which pulls us out of the ability to focus on what's happening now. And if the task of focusing on right now is to be calm and relaxed and confident or loving and kind, and we're focusing on what they might be thinking, we've just diluted our ability to be fully present. And so it's this thing that is pervasive. And I think most of us can wave a small flag or a big flag to say, I recognize I've got this fear of what they might think of me.
I heard you, and I think this was listening to one of your podcasts where you talk about it's like our brains are wired this way for survival, right? So
Right.
because you
Yeah.
want to fit in.
That's
and
exactly
it's
right.
critical to our
Yeah.
existence.
We're social beings first.
Yeah.
And we act like we're individuals, but we're social beings first.
Right.
And so if you don't give me like the right signals that I'm okay in your eyes, then a million years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, I was kicked out of the tribe. And so we're attuned to that now. So we've got this ancient brain, but hasn't quite figured out how to adapt to modern dilemmas. And the most significant threat in modern times, for most people, it's not the dark alley. It's the person across the boardroom table, the living room table, the boss, or your friends even, oddly enough.
Right.
What they think of you becomes really problematic for many of us.
So we're obviously going to read the book to figure out
Thank
exactly,
you.
but like what to unlock, what's at the heart of the message that you're trying to, get across in the book of what people can do to sign me up. Like I
Okay,
would
good,
love to
good.
just
Me too.
be
Yeah,
able to.
good.
We always, my
Workshop.
brother and I
Yeah,
always joke
that'll
about.
be
I
fun.
can't wait.
That'll be really fun.
Like a month, like 2 months,
Yeah,
like
'cause
a year-long workshop.
That'd be really
We
fun.
always say, my brother and I always say, I can't wait till I'm old enough to not give a
Care.
shit
Right.
what other people
So
think.
why do we have to wait?
Right.
I
Yeah,
had
why
that
do you
same thought.
wait?
Yes.
I have that
Yeah.
same exact thought. And then there's this idea that like with age is wisdom, but we don't have to wait
Yeah.
to one day be so old that it's not
You'll
important
regret,
anymore.
You'll look back and
Yeah.
regret it. And
You
regret,
can do
like,
it
why
now.
did I care so much? Nobody else did.
Yeah.
Well, they're all in their head worrying about what you're
Exactly.
thinking.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
right? Like, so it's a,
Yeah.
so the number one message is that it is important to know what people are thinking. That is important, but not at the cost of your own sense of well-being, at the cost of your ability to be in the present moment and be authentically you. And certainly that is one of the culprits of a person's potential. So what's the message? Turn inward and have this and exercise and work the skills so that you can be free in any environment that you're in. So, yeah.
All right, I'm
practicing
into
breathing
it
right now.
Yeah.
Are you?
No,
Yeah.
I-
Do you have a breathing practice?
I don't. Game day, the other thing I do too prior is I always try to run. I'm a runner.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that helps because I think it just like exhausts my nervous system so much
Yeah.
that I can't be anxious or nervous. But the days I like have a good run and then I go to the game, I always fall back and well, at least I got my work at it.
That's
at least
good.
no
That'll
matter
work.
what happens, so that helps. I think running helps with the breathing. It helps with like rhythmic breathing.
It does.
So I kind of pull back on that a little bit, but I don't have a specific breathing routine. Help me.
So let's just stay on the running for a minute. One of the other things it does, if you think about like a glass of water, and it's completely full, that's what anxiety feels like. Like you're walking around, you've got to have some movement in your life, but you can't spill the water, right? It's like
exactly,
there's,
yeah.
That's
it's
a really
called,
good analogy.
Yeah,
Or
does it
walking on
fit?
eggshells,
Yeah.
so
right, yeah.
Under the water, that's good.
So it's called a high cortical arousal.
Yeah.
So there's so much internal electricity that it just feels really scratchy or unsettling or like almost
With a little pit in
overwhelming.
your stomach.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Yeah.
And so one of the ways to empty some of that water out of the container is certainly doing
Movement,
exercise
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Another way is breathing to downregulate. I'll explain that in a minute. And another way is to do things that fully absorb your attention. So a small example could be a great conversation with somebody, but you're fully in it, right? Or juggling as another example. Like you have to be fully in it to do it.
Okay.
And then, but the breathing strategy it's not complicated, but we think that it's about 10 long exhales in a row is where you begin to kick on your relaxation mechanisms in your brain.
The focus is the exhale.
Yeah, so the focus is on the
Getting
exhale,
anxiety
and
out.
it's about 10 seconds. Let's say 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. For most people, it's a pretty good start. 6 seconds in, maybe 12 seconds out, something like that. And then about the 10th, your body starts to go, oh, I'm okay.
Okay.
There's no saber tooth chasing me. And like,
Right.
this moment's actually quite nice. I'm in my living room and like,
Right,
yeah, right.
Exactly. I'm comfortable. I should appreciate this.
And then last thing, we'll stick with your experience for one more moment, is like, anxiety is a fear of the future. So what are the fears that you're working from?
What are the fears I'm working on?
Well, what are the
anticipating what's going to happen?
Yeah, and so
fear.
the catastrophe is it could go really bad.
Right.
Football's rugged,
Yeah.
dangerous, da-da-da. And so it's just kind of sitting with that like, that's his choice. I'm going to love him no matter what. He's got to live his life in the most dynamic way, and I'm going to support it fully. And that's a really cool role that you've taken in your kids' lives. It doesn't mean it's easy.
No. Well, and then when I'm around him, I fake it.
Oh, do you?
No, it's fine. It was a great game. I was completely calm. We just sat there and clapped. Great way to go, son.
He
But
knows.
meanwhile,
He knows.
Oh, he knows.
Yeah,
He
right.
So knows.
Yeah.
So, I'm not very good at faking. I'm not a great actress.
And we have had other moms say that your kids can feel
They sense, yeah.
your energy.
And I
We all
think
can.
about
Yeah.
that because I feel like I'm not doing him a service by being
Right.
anxious and nervous. I'm like, that's not helping him.
No.
Well, you know
either.
what? So on your point is that we are designed for survival. Our brain is designed for survival. And this is why anxiety is such a prevalent issue for all humans right now at some level, is that so our brain scans the world for danger. And if I look over at you, Ashley, and your eyes are darting around, or your breathing is up in your chest, or you're kind of fidgety. And I'm like, whoa, what is she noticing that's dangerous?
Sure.
Is it something about this environment? Is it me? Is it something else? Maybe she knows something I don't know. So now my antenna, I got to match that level of survival. And so, birds of a feather that flock together, like that type of thing is really true. So
it's amazing as you're saying that. This is as calm as I have felt sitting next to you this whole week.
Oh,
so
that's fun. Yeah,
I'm living
good.
what you're talking about very,
good.
very real time. So you have a 14-year-old son, Grayson.
I do. Yeah, thank you.
And I love when you talk about kind of the journey, the parenting journey that you go on, because you have so much knowledge in the way that you think and are so intentional about so many things. But he's an athlete.
He is.
And I would just be curious, there's a lot of parents, obviously, who listen to this podcast who are trying to navigate how much involvement, how much do I pull back, how do I encourage, how do I not overstep?
Right? Yeah,
and you gave a tree analogy the other day that I just absolutely loved about the roots.
Yeah.
And so I just, your high level, what from a parenting perspective, what advice would you give for parents who are navigating the youth sports?
Well, first of all, there's no clear roadmap. And so we are making it up as we go, because each child, each person is uniquely different. And you said your child's an athlete. And the first thing as I said yes, I said, why did I say that? So, no, he's athletic. So I would never box him into being an athlete. And I wouldn't say, if you said, oh, he's an artist then? No, he's artistic.
Sure.
So I wouldn't, first and foremost, I wouldn't foreclose the identity.
Right.
Yeah. So there's this, at this age, the teenage years, what all of us were trying to do is sort out, like, who are we?
Right.
And if the adults around are like, all we talk about is something and we're labeling them a certain way, now what happens when they go out and do their thing that they love doing, right? Call it, my son is volleyball right now, that he goes out to do that, then his identity is at stake, which is way different than just trying to figure out how to watch the ball and hit the ball or whatever. So that's the first thing, is like, open it up.
Really
so that you don't see them as just one way, and help them not to label themselves in that way. The second is, I say for parents, just be great at the car ride home. Start there.
Right.
Right? You know the car ride
yeah.
home, right?
Absolutely.
This is why kids leave sport.
Right. Oh, 100%.
It's so intense. You got the anxious parents.
Right.
Why didn't you get this rep? What happened to your, you've been talking about working on your high elbow, whatever the thing might be. Like, and so like, how do you do
that? How do you make the car ride great?
How was your practice? I do ask that, right? And he'll say fine or whatever. There's not a whole lot of information.
Yeah.
And then I say great. And then it's just kind of quiet. And then soon as at the moment that feels right, I'll say, how was school? And then just kind of go into that. And I'm just trying to get them to talk about, and here's the questions I ask. I say, open-ended questions. What was the funniest thing you experienced today? What was the scariest thing that you had going on today? Where'd you get challenged the most? And so I'm asking these open-ended questions about the fullness of the experience. And he looks at me like, come on, Dad.
I was going to say, 14-year-old boys in
Come on.
particular
Yeah,
are
come on,
usually
come on,
the most
Dad.
effusive.
They are not dominant. Except for Luke, my youngest.
But when you ask them the funniest thing,
they usually light up, right?
That's a go-to. Like that opens up, right?
Sometimes I get them with, what'd you have for lunch? That type of thing. Who'd you sit with? What'd you talk about?
I like the word, who'd you sit with? Yeah. Same people, Dad.
Yeah, same people. Yeah. I was like, do they have a girlfriend or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. How old is your son? The youngest?
The youngest is 21.
Yeah, okay, so you're out of this phase.
No, way out of it. But when he was little, he was like, oh my gosh, I swear he held onto my leg and just talked incessantly, diatribe. I think it was almost like he was practicing English. It was really funny.
Yeah.
He was cute.
And then you left him at a birthday party when he was
He talked to them.
And he was fine. Yeah, that's survival.
He's a
survivor.
survivor.
You're going to judge me.
No, I'm not, I promise.
He's a survivor.
Yeah. But let me do the tree analogy really quickly.
Okay,
that relationships, beautiful relationships, are like two strong trees. And they're separate in their space between the trunks. And their roots are well grounded. And those roots for humans are like knowing your values, knowing your personal philosophy, having a sense of who you are and what you stand for. That's really what the roots are. And then you've got these really strong trunks that come out of that. And if you think about the two people, the two trees, that they've got the ability to touch and intermingle at the branches. And then they can sway together, they can be together in that way. But what happened for me in my life, the reason I know this so well, is my wife and I met when we were 15.
Wow.
And so we had good roots, but then we grew together really quickly. And so the trunks started to get intertwined with each other.
Okay.
And when those trunks get intertwined, you can lose yourself. And so we lost each other in the relationship until, my wife and I are married. It's been 30 plus years. It's amazing. At year 7 of our marriage, she's like, you gotta go. You gotta move out. Like, I love you. You're a good human, but I don't know who I am.
Wow.
And thank God she did it, because we went to work, we rolled up our sleeves, we did that work on the relationship. And so we had to figure out, like, what does that strength of separation feel like, so that we can sway in the wind together.
Wow.
And not sway in the way that it feels like we've lost our own way, and that I can be there. Yeah, I can be there for her when she's wobbling, and she can be there for me when I'm wobbling. So that analogy holds like deep waters for me.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah,
wow.
it's good.
I never thought of it like
it's
that.
good
That's
training.
incredible.
Yeah.
Really good.
And so much credit to your wife for being able to identify it, and credit to you
Oh,
for
yeah.
being able to say, let's go to work on it, because I think a lot of marriages and relationships dissolve
Well,
because of that.
I mean, you can imagine 30 years old and she says, like, we're done. Like, that was the age. And so it's a tough age for marriages and people in general. And so,
And did you have kids at that point?
no, so we had that luxury that
Okay,
it
so
wasn't
that was-
complicated with that variable. But I didn't think we were going to talk about this today, but
But anyway,
we're in
let's
it.
talk
Yeah,
about it.
right. Yeah. She was very clear. Like, I am done.
Wow.
It's like, you know that feeling when like there's nothing left
I
for
say that
me.
on a daily.
Yeah, I know. Jesus. And so credit to her for like
Wow.
rolling the sleeve and doing the work.
Yeah, seeing
Yeah.
and both of you doing the work and then coming back together, probably stronger and
Yeah,
better.
that's right.
And then you can support each other. That's really impressive. Wow.
The key question,
Yeah.
stay here for just one more moment, is the key question the psychologist looked over at us, and I'm Italian. I identify with Italian roots. She's Latin. She identifies with Cuban roots. And we got all this fire we're sitting on the couch, right? And we got all this fire, and the therapist says, well, this is our first meeting back. We hadn't seen each other for a month. Well, this is about as bad as it gets, right? I was like, oh shit. Yeah, so, okay, here we go, right? Damn.
Only go up.
I thought I had a
Yeah,
chance
that's
here,
true.
right? Well, that's good. That's the
Yeah, there you
optimist.
go.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And she says, she goes, Mike, you know you need to work on yourself, right? I go, yeah. And then she goes, Lisa, you need to work on yourself. You know that, right? And she says, yeah. And then she goes, okay, I got 2 questions. Do you want to work on yourselves with each other or with another person? And I was like, oh my God, this is the question.
Wow.
And my wife says, and my heart's pounding.
Yeah, my heart's
'cause
pounding right
Yeah,
now.
This is
me
the
too.
moment. This is the moment, right?
Yeah.
And she says, I don't want to work on myself with anyone. No, I love him. I just can't be me. Back to that. And I was like, okay, I got a chance. And she goes, number 2, you guys need time away from each other. And I was like, oh boy, this isn't great. And she says, here's the question. Are you going to honor your vows or no rules?
Wow.
And did she have to answer? Did Lisa answer
I
first?
had, she had to.
Yeah.
I can't. I was taking. I had too much space in the tree trunk. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that? I was like, I was hitting the panic button.
And so what was her answer?
Yeah, so
If
my
I know
heart was
we
up.
were going deep. I'm sorry, but what was her answer?
Do I talk about it? Yeah, no, she goes, I'm not trying to get laid. That's
Yeah.
not what this is. And I was like, thank
I
God.
just need some time for myself. It's
That's
like
it,
the
yeah, right,
opposite.
yeah.
You're not
I
going
was
to let
like,
you go to the grocery store and you
yeah.
can pick one person and
Right.
you go, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
that's not,
No, that's not.
should we not do that?
No, no.
I'm kidding.
To each his own. Right?
I'm
Yeah.
joking.
It's your journey that you're on with
But
that.
I was
Just a
thankful.
dream.
I was thankful that it went this
Oh,
way.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
So
Oh,
yeah.
Wow,
Thank you
that
for
probably
sharing
made
that.
you
Yeah, cool.
so much stronger. A lot of people probably need to hear that because they may be in a rut and think there's no hope, but that gives people hope.
Well, I'm sharing this with the loop back around is to your point about hope is that like a great parent, a great mom knows herself really well,
Yeah.
right? So she's grounded, she's got roots, and she can see her kid like and not get so freaked out, not to be that trunk that's so close to it. And that's actually what enmeshment is. When the 2 trunks are so close that when the
One
kid
dies,
wobbles,
right?
the other wobbles.
Oh,
But yes, to your
wow.
point, yes. But I'm doing like enmeshment and codependency now.
Okay.
And what we want to do is have like one person wobbles and the other one can just be sturdy, can be still and say, I'm here for you. And we didn't have that. Most, I think, parents and kids don't quite have that. They're parenting the same way that they were parented,
Right.
Which is a
Right.
little bit of frustration and tolerance
A lot
and
of
anxiety,
dysfunctions. Yeah.
right? And the world is different now.
Right.
So my hope and dream for people is that they deeply invest in themselves. They know their virtues. They practice the psychological skills to be about them in any environment. And that level of flourishing is available to all of us, independent of sport, parenting, whatever. But it does take work. Just like you train your body to be fit, you can train your mind in the same way.
I know we have to let you go because you've got about a million other interviews,
No,
but I just
no,
need you
you
to stay.
sit
I
with
know.
me, please.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's
Yeah.
a good seat.
That's
so-
true.
you're so sweet. Yeah.
How many Super Bowls have you been to?
2. I was
Two?
fortunate enough to participate with the Seahawks
Okay.
at 2 of them.
So the very last thing is, if you had a chance to talk to these guys before they take the field, what's the message? Or I guess it's probably before, right? Maybe it's earlier
well
than
before. Yeah, but the thing right on it is, as they're walking out of the tunnel, like all you want them to do is kind of nodding their head, and it's this quiet nod, like, I'm gonna go do my thing. I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm kind of a badass. Let's go. I got a great teammate. Like, let's go. And so it's a nodding of the head, but you want them to trust their whole body of work and go experience like everything that it has to offer. But I would say the Super Bowl, in my mind, this is going to sound blasphemous, is not different than pregame number 2. It's not different than a practice. So when it comes from the psychology and emotional part of the game, and I've seen your son warm up, he's got a world-class warm-up. Like the way he moves.
Do you think he does too much warm up?
I wouldn't know volume and intensity of it, but you can tell he knows exactly. He's got a program that he's put together, and the point that I would want to make is like trust your full body of work, so that you can nod your head. If you're not training your mind, it's kind of a crapshoot how you're going to deal with a mistake,
Right.
how you're going to deal with a boo, a cheer, or whatever, a drop ball, or whatever.
Right.
So train your mind so you can be in the present moment, and when you do that, the external world does not define your internal experience. And
Right.
like that's
Yes,
mastery.
that is.
That's
Oh,
mastery.
You
Yeah.
make it sound so easy.
No, I don't.
You don't,
Yeah,
you
thank
don't.
you. You guys are
Mike
great. Thank
Gervais,
you so much.
you are the best.
Yeah.
If people want to
Appreciate you
find,
guys.
Finding Mastery is your podcast. Anywhere
That's
else
the
that we'd
best
want to
place.
point people
It's
to?
the most fun place
Okay.
to
And I'll
celebrate.
see you
Yeah.
at the first game.
Let's
for sure.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We're gonna hire you as
You
Lisa's
bring your
personal
ring.
life
Bring your
coach.
ring.
Yeah, show us your ring.
Yeah,
Show us
yeah.
the ring.
That's
Oh,
insane.
Where's the
yeah.
camera?
Oh,
Seattle
yeah, that just came up.
Seahawks Super Bowl ring. What year?
This was 12-13, the first year.
Yeah. That one
The
hurts
first
my
time.
soul.
We won it
That
in
was
Ger-
against the Broncos, right?
Oh, are you? Yeah, I see
I
you're
can't
wearing
talk about
orange.
that.
Yeah, I
I
know.
can't talk about that game. That was the saddest. Oof.
Oh,
But you know what? That wasn't
was
even.
good.
You couldn't have even enjoyed. We couldn't have even enjoyed 1 second of it. Like it
No,
wasn't even
it
like there was
started
a
wrong.
moment that
It
we
started.
felt like it
Yeah,
was
no.
not
Kind
meant
of
to
like
be.
our divisional playoff game.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
All right.
I had
enjoy
a
the rest
fun
of your
time.
day. You are
I
the best.
know. Well, that was very
Mike Gervais,
cathartic.
we're going to
Thank
try and
you.
get you back on
Appreciate
at
you
some
guys.
point for
Yeah.
longer.
That was
But good luck, and
amazing.
we're excited to read the book.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
amazing.
it. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.